History remembers the facts, but what about the phantoms that refuse to be forgotten? Welcome back to The Common Historian, where history meets the supernatural. I'm Jeremy, and today we're diving in the spine-tingling exploration of America's most haunted hotels, places where you can actually book a room and potentially encounter the spirits of the past. So grab your favorite beverage, dim the lights, and prepare to journey into a world where history refuses to stay buried. Let's start with perhaps the most famous haunted hotel in America, the one that inspired Stephen King's The Shining, the Stanley Hotel in the Colorado Rockies, an elevation of 7,522 feet, has been terrifying and fascinating guests since it opened in 1909. Freeland Oscar Stanley built his Gregorian colonial revival masterpiece after being diagnosed with tuberculosis. His doctors recommended the mountain air of Colorado, and Stanley not only recovered but thrived, living to the age of 91. He and his wife Flora poured their fortune, made by inventing the Stanley steamer automobile, into creating a luxury resort that would rival any in the world. But here's where things get interesting. Stephen King's stay in room 217 in September 1974, on the last night before the hotel closed for the winter, he and his wife, Tabitha, were the only guests. King had a nightmare about his 3-year-old son running through the corridors, being chased by a fire hose. He woke up at 3 in the morning, walked outside to smoke, and by the time he returned to his room, he had the entire plot of The Shining outlined. Now, what King experienced wasn't just creative inspiration. Room 217 is generally the most active, haunted room in the hotel. There is Elizabeth Wilson, the hotel's head housekeeper. In the early 1900s, in 1911, during a severe storm, Elizabeth was lighting the alkaline lanterns in room 217 when an explosion occurred. The blast was so powerful it blew out the floor beneath her, and she fell through to the room below. Miraculously, she survived, though she broke both ankles. Mr. Stanley paid for her medical care and gave her a job at the hotel for life. Yes, in room 217, report items being unpacked and neatly arranged, as if Elizabeth is still performing her housekeeping duties. Men particularly report feeling an invisible presence sitting on the bed or an unseen force tucking them in. Some have even reported being pushed or nudged if they've left their belongings in disarray. Elizabeth apparently maintained high standards even in death. But she's not the only spirit here. Flora Stanley, Freeland's wife, was an accomplished pianist who gave concerts in the hotel's music room. Guests and staff frequently hear piano music emulating from the music room late at night, even though it's locked and empty. The music is described as beautiful, classical pieces that Flora would have played during her lifetime. When staff investigate, the music stops the moment they open the door. In the billiard room, witnesses report seeing Freeland Stanley himself, always impeccably dressed, appearing as a translucent figure before vanishing. He seems to be inspecting his beloved hotel, ensuring that it's being maintained to his exacting standards. The fourth floor, once the servants' quarter, is a hotbed of paranormal activity. Children's laughter echoes through the hallways. Footsteps run across empty rooms. and doors open and close on their own. The energy there feels playful but mischievous. One theory is that these are the spirits of children who worked at the hotel in the 1900s, a grim reminder of a time when child labor was commonplace. The Stanley doesn't shy away from its haunted reputation. They offer nightly ghost tours, have a ghost hunting kit available for rent, and Room 217 is booked solid months in advance by paranormal enthusiasts. The hotel has been featured on numerous paranormal television shows, including Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, and The Dead Files, with investigators consistently capturing EVPs, shadow figures, and unexplained electromagnetic field readings. What makes the Stanley particularly compelling is that the building has remained largely unchanged since its construction. The original woodwork, fixtures, and architectural detail creates an atmosphere frozen in time, perhaps for the spirits who may not realize they've passed on. Docked permanently in Long Beach, California, RMS Queen Mary is a floating testament to maritime history in one of the most haunted locations in America. This isn't just a hotel, it's a 1,000-foot ocean liner that sailed the Atlantic over 3 decades, and its history is steeped in both luxury and tragedy. Launched in 1936, the Queen Mary was an epitome of Art Deco elegance, carrying celebrities, royalty, and the wealthy elite across the Atlantic. But when World War II erupted, this luxury liner was transformed into a troop ship painted gray and nicknamed the Gray Ghost due to her speed and stealth. She transported over 800,000 troops during the war, more than any other vessel. During her wartime service, on October 2nd, 1942, the Queen Mary was traveling off the coast of Ireland as part of a zigzag pattern to avoid German U-boats. She was accompanied by HMS Curacao, a light cruiser tasked with protecting her. Due to a fatal miscommunication and the Queen Mary's immense size and speed, the ocean liner accidentally rammed directly into the Curacao, slicing the smaller vessel too. The cruiser sank in minutes. Due to the wartime protocol and the risk of U-boat attacks, Captain Krillin Illingworth made the agonizing decision not to stop for survivors. Of the 439 men aboard the Curacao, only 99 survived. The incident was kept classified until the war ended. Today, numerous crew members and guests report seeing men in World War II naval uniforms wandering the decks, looking confused and waterlogged. These apparitions are most commonly seen near the bow of the ship, exactly where the collision occurred. Some witnesses report these spirits seem unaware they're dead, calling out for help or asking for directions to their stations. But the Queen Mary's most infamous haunting occurred in the bowels of the ship, the engine room, and specifically door 13. In the 1960s, during a routine drill, 18-year-old fireman John Heder was crushed to death by this watertight door. The door, weighing several tons, closed on him during what should have been a standard procedure. His death was both sudden and horrific. Door 13 and the surrounding areas have become paranormal hotspots. Visitors report sudden drops in temperature, the feeling of being watched and even physically touched. particularly near the area where John died. Multiple people have reported seeing a young man in blue coveralls with a beard appearing and disappearing. When approached, he vanishes. Some psychics who visited claimed to feel an overwhelming sense of panic and confusion in this area, as if John is replaying his final moments over and over. The first class swimming pool, which has been empty since 1967, is another epicenter of paranormal activity. At least two women drowned in this pool during the ship's operational years. Guests and staff report seeing wet footprints appearing on the deck around the pool, the sound of splashing water when the pool is bone dry, and most chillingly, the apparition of a in 1930s era bathing suit walking near the pool area. One spirit, believed to be a woman named Jackie, is particularly active. She is often seen in the changing rooms, and children who visit the pool area sometimes report seeing a lady in old-fashioned clothes who asks them to play. When parents look, there's no one there. Stateroom B340 has such an intense reputation that the Queen Mary sealed it off from guests for decades. The room was only reopened in 2018 as a haunted attraction room with special paranormal themed decor. The history of B340 is murky, but reports include a man who murdered two women in the room during the ship's sailing days and a murder suicide that occurred there in the 1960s. Guests who stayed in B340 before it was closed reported violent encounters, being physically grabbed, thrown from the bed, and experiencing overwhelming feelings of dread and anger. Water faucets would turn on full blast in the middle of the night. Covers would be ripped off beds, and people reported seeing a dark, menacing figure standing at the foot of the bed. What makes the Queen Mary particularly fascinating from a paranormal research perspective is the sheer variety of phenomena reported. This isn't just ghost sightings, it's poltergeist activity, residual hauntings, intelligent spirits, and even potential demonic entities. The ship has been investigated by every major paranormal team in the country, and the evidence collected EVPs, full body apparitions on security cameras, electromagnetic anomalies, it's staggering. The metal structure of the ship may actually enhance the paranormal activity. Metal is believed by some researchers to conduct spiritual energy, and the Leviathan corridors, levels, and thousands of rooms create a complex environment where energies could become trapped or concentrated. You can book a stateroom on the Queen Mary tonight if you want. They offer paranormal investigation tours, and the ship's historical archives are extensive. This is a place where you can literally sleep surrounded by history and quite possibly share your room with someone who never checked out. Overlooking the Victorian village of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, sits the Crescent Hotel, a beautiful limestone structure that calls itself America's most haunted hotel. And unlike many places that claim the title, the Crescent has the documented history and paranormal evidence to back it up. Built in 1886 as a luxury resort for the wealthy elite who came to Eureka Springs to take the waters at the natural springs, Crescent Hotel has lived many lives. But its darkest chapter began in 1937 when a man named Norman Baker arrived in town. Norman Baker was a charlatan, a snake oil salesman, and one of the most successful medical frauds in American history. After being run out of Iowa for operating a fake cancer clinic, Baker purchased the Crescent Hotel and transformed it into the Baker Hospital, a supposed cancer treatment center. He claimed he could cure cancer with a secret formula that included watermelon seed, brown corn silk, alcohol, and carbolic acid. Baker had no medical training whatsoever. He was a former vaudeville magician and radio personality, but he was a brilliant marketer. He convinced desperate cancer patients that mainstream medicine was a conspiracy and that his treatments were being suppressed by the medical establishment. He charged exorbitant fees and kept detailed records of his patients, many of whom died horrible deaths under his care. Baker performed grotesque experiments in the hotel's basement, which he converted into a laboratory. He conducted surgeries, injected patients with his toxic concoctions, and when they died, he would either ship the body out secretly or store them in the basement. The hotel's current management has found jars in the walls containing human remains, surgical tools, and Baker's various medicines. Baker's reign of terror ended in 1940 when he was arrested for mail fraud. He was convicted and died in 1958, never serving his full sentence, marked on the Crescent Hotel. Room 419 is the epicenter of Norman Baker's haunting. This was his office, where he planned his treatments, counted his blood money. Guests in 419 report feeling an overwhelming sense of dread and malevolence. The air feels thick, breathing becomes difficult, and many people experience severe headaches within minutes of entering. Electronic devices malfunction, draining completely in seconds. Cameras shut off, phones die, and flashlights flicker. Multiple guests have reported seeing a man in a white linen suit and purple shirt, Baker's signature outfit, standing at the foot of their bed, staring at them. When they turn on the light, he vanishes. Some report waking up unable to move, experiencing sleep paralysis, while feeling a presence pressing down on their chest. But Baker isn't the only spirit roaming the Crescent. Michael, the Irish stonemason, who reportedly fell to his death during the hotel's construction in 1886, is perhaps the most frequent encountered spirit. He's playful and mischievous, particularly in room 218, where his body was allegedly found. Guests report items being moved, luggage being unpacked, and the television or light turning on or off. Unlike Baker's malevolent presence, Michael seems to enjoy interacting with guests. He's been photographed multiple times as a translucent figure, and his laughter has been captured on audio recording. The fourth floor is where Norman Baker housed his terminal patients, the ones he knew were beyond even his fake treatments. This floor has an oppressive atmosphere. Nurses in old-fashioned uniforms have been seen pushing gurneys down the hallway. Guests report hearing moaning, crying, and occasional screaming. One particularly chilling account involved a guest who heard someone gasp for air in the room next door. When they called the front desk, they were told the room was empty and locked. Theodora, a cancer patient who checked into the Crescent seeking treatment in 1937, is one of the most active spirits. She died in room 419, Baker's office, and is now seen throughout the hotel. She appears as a translucent woman in her 50s, wearing a nightgown, and she seems to be searching for something. Psychics who have encountered her claim she is looking for her family, who left her at the hotel and never returned. Her apparition is most commonly seen in the lobby and on the third floor, always with the same sad, confused expression. The basement where Baker conducted his experiments is generally terrifying. Even skeptics report feeling uncomfortable there. The morgue is still intact, complete with the original drawers where bodies were stored. Paranormal investigators have captured some of the most compelling evidence here: disembodied voices begging for help, shadow figures darting between rooms, and on one occasion, a full body apparition of Norman Baker himself standing in his laboratory. The Crescent Hotel doesn't just acknowledge its haunted history, they've built their entire brand around it. They offer nightly ghost tours that take you through Baker's morgue and the haunted rooms in the hotel's most active areas. They have a full-time paranormal investigation team, and guests can book ghost hunting packages that include equipment and guided investigations. What's particularly compelling about the Crescent is the sheer volume of documented history. Medical records from the Baker's Hospital exist in the Arkansas archives. Death certificates confirm dozens of people died at the facility. Newspaper accounts from the 1930s detail the scandal when Baker was finally exposed. This isn't folklore or legend. This is documented tragedy, and it seems the victims are still seeking justice. The Crescent Hotel stands as a beautiful monument to the Victorian era, but beneath that beauty lies genuine darkness. If you decide to stay here, request room 218 if you want a playful encounter with Michael, or 419 if you are brave enough to confront Norman Baker himself. Just don't say I didn't warn you. In the heart of San Antonio, directly across from the Alamo, stands Emily Morgan Hotel, a Gothic revival building with a dark secret. This building wasn't always a hotel. From 1926 to 1976, it was the Medical Arts Building, hospital and medical office complex where thousands of surgeries were performed and countless patients took their final breaths. The building's Gothic architecture is striking. Gargoyles line the facade. The stonework is ornate and foreboding, and the entire structure has almost cathedral-like appearance. But this wasn't a church. This was a place of suffering, and that suffering has left an imprint that guests continue to experience. The hotel is named after Emily Morgan, the legendary Yellow Rose of Texas, a mixed race woman who allegedly seduced Mexican general Santa Anna before San Ja- the Battle of San Jacinto, distracting him and contributing to the Texas victory. Whether this story is true or embellished legend, it's debatable. But it's fitting that the hotel is named after someone whose true story is obscured by myth, because the building itself is shrouded in mystery and unexplained phenomenon. The seventh floor is the epicenter of the paranormal activity. During the building's time as a hospital, this floor housed surgical suites and recovery rooms. It's where amputations were performed, where patients died on the operating tables, and where families received devastating news. Today, guests on the seventh floor report disembodied moans and cries echoing through the hallways, particularly late at night. One of the most disturbing reports involved guests hearing what sounded like medical equipment: the rhythmic beeping of monitors, the hiss of oxygen tanks, and the metallic clatter of surgical instruments being arranged. When they step into the hallway to investigate, the sound stops immediately. Some guests have reported smelling antiseptic and ether, scents that have no place in the modern hotel, but were ambiguous in early 20th century hospitals. The elevators at the Emily Morgan have minds of their own. Guests report calling the elevator from the seventh floor, only to have it open on a different floor entirely. Security footage has shown the elevator traveling to floors where no one pressed the buttons. Doors open and close, no one visible inside. On several occasions, the elevator has stopped on the seventh floor. Doors opened to a empty hallway, but guests inside report feeling a sudden drop in temperature, an overwhelming sense that something invisible had just entered the elevator with them. Perhaps the most chilling account comes from the basement, which during the hospital era served as the morgue. The basement is off limits to accessible only to staff, and employees consistently refuse to go down there alone. Maintenance workers report hearing footsteps following them, seeing shadow figures moving between the old storage areas, and experiencing the sensation of being watched. One housekeeper reported seeing a man in a white doctor's coat standing near the old morgue area. When she blinked, he was gone. She quit the next day. Room 1408 has such a severe haunting that the hotel received regular requests from paranormal investigators specifically for this room. Guests report aggressive phenomenon, being touched by invisible hands, covers being pulled off the bed, and objects flying off surfaces. One couple checked out at 2 in the morning, refusing to spend another minute in the room, claiming they'd both been scratched by something they couldn't see. The 12th floor, which serves as the psychiatric ward during the building's hospital years, has a particularly oppressive atmosphere. Guests report feeling overwhelming sadness and anxiety. Even if they were in perfectly good spirits moments before, some have experienced full panic attacks seemingly out of nowhere. The hallway lights flicker consistently on this floor, and the temperature is noticeably colder than the rest of the hotel. What makes the Emily Morgan particularly compelling is its proximity to the Alamo. San Antonio is built on centuries of violent history: Spanish colonization, the Battle of the Alamo, frontier violence, and the struggle of early settlers. Some paranormal researchers theorize that the Emily Morgan sits on land saturated with traumatic energy, and the suffering that occurred during its time as a hospital simply added to an already spiritually active location. The hotel staff has countless stories. Housekeepers report entering rooms they've just cleaned to find the bed messed up, as if someone had been lying there. Front desk employees have watched security cameras show doors opening and closing on empty floors. Guests check in specifically hoping for paranormal experiences, and according to the staff, very few leave disappointed. If you're planning a visit to San Antonio and want to experience something beyond the usual tourist attraction, book a room at the Emily Morgan. Request a room on the 7th or 12th floor. If you're feeling brave, just remember this building has seen more deaths than most cemeteries, and some of those who died here apparently never checked out. On Michigan Avenue in Chicago, overlooking Grant Park and Lake Michigan, stands the Congress Plaza Hotel, a grand day of Chicago hospitality that opened in 1893 for the World's Columbian Exposition. This hotel has hosted presidents, celebrities, and mobsters. It is also home to one of the most diverse collections of American spirits. The Congress Plaza is a sprawling complex, the result of multiple buildings being connected over the years, creating a leviathan of hallways, dead ends, and forgotten rooms. This architectural chaos seems to trap spiritual energy, creating pockets of intense paranormal activity throughout the property. The most famous ghost at the Congress is the woman in red, who allegedly fell to her death from the hotel, though whether she jumped, was pushed, or fell accidentally is unclear. Some accounts claim that she was a prostitute in the early 1900s who was murdered by a client. Others say she was a scorned lover who killed herself after her husband left her. Regardless of the true story, her spirit is very active. She most commonly seen on the seventh floor wearing a red dress from the Victorian era, wandering the halls looking confused. She seems solid and real until she either vanishes into thin air or walks through a wall. One particularly chilling account comes from a maintenance worker who saw her standing at the end of a hallway. He called out to her, asking if she need help. She turned, looked directly at him, and simply faded away like fog in the sunlight. Room 441 in the Congress Plaza, most haunted room, though the hotel no longer rents it out due to the sheer volume of complaints and terrified guests. This room was allegedly the scene of a double murder in the 1920s, a shooting involving gangsters, though records of the incident are frustratingly scarce. Guests who stayed in the 441 before it was closed reported violent phenomenon, items thrown across the room, aggressive shoving, and in one case, a guest claimed to have been scratched while sleeping, waking up with a red mark on his throat. During Prohibition, the Congress Plaza was the known hangout for Al Capone and other Chicago mobsters. The hotel has a series of underground tunnels that connected to nearby buildings, allowing bootleggers to move alcohol undetected. These tunnels are now sealed, but they remain a hotspot for paranormal activity. Security guards report hearing voices, footsteps, and bottles clinking together from behind the sealed tunnel's entrance. One spirit that multiple employees and guests have encountered is that of the former staff member known as Pegleg Johnny, a bellhop who had worked at the hotel in the early 1900s and had a wooden prosthetic leg. Witnesses report hearing a distinctive uneven footstep pattern, tap, drag, tap, drag, coming down empty hallways. When they investigate, there's no one there. The sound is so distinctive and so frequently reported that even skeptical staff members acknowledge something unusual is happening. The Florentine Room, one of the hotel's ballrooms, is where numerous witnesses have reported seeing couples in vintage clothes dancing to music no one else can hear. The apparitions are described as translucent but detailed. Women in flapper dress, men in tuxedos, all moving in synchronized patterns to silent big band music. These sightings typically last only a few seconds before the dancers fade away. Perhaps the most disturbing phenomenon occurs in the hotel's South Tower. Multiple guests have reported being awakened in the middle of the night by the sensation of someone sitting on the edge of their bed. When they open their eyes, they see an indentation on the mattress, as if someone is indeed sitting there, but no one is visible. Some reports feel a touch on their shoulder or face, if someone is trying to wake them or comfort them. The Congress Plaza has been investigated extensively by paranormal research teams, including the Ghost Research Society and various television programs. Evidence collected includes EVP recordings of children's laughter, despite no children being present, shadow figures captured on video surveillance, dramatic temperature fluctuations in specific rooms with no mechanical explanation. What's particularly interesting about the Congress is its layered history. It's not just one tragedy or one era creating the hauntings. It's over 130 years of human drama, pain, joy, and loss, all imprinted on this building. The hotel has witnessed everything from the optimism of the 1893 World's Fair to the violence of the Prohibition era, from the glamour of the Roaring Twenties to the hardship of the Great Depression and beyond. The Congress Plaza doesn't advertise its haunted history as aggressively as some of the other hotels on this list, but staff members will tell you stories if you ask. The hotel has a certain faded elegance, a sense that its best days may be behind it, which somehow makes the ghost stories feel more authentic. This isn't a polished paranormal tourist attraction. It's a genuinely old building with genuine ghosts. If you're planning a trip to Chicago, the Congress Plaza offers reasonable rates and an unbeatable location. You might encounter the woman in red, hear Peg Leg Johnny's distinctive footsteps, or wake up to the sensation of an invisible visitor sitting on your bed. And if nothing paranormal happens, well, you still have a comfortable stay in a historic hotel with an incredible view of Lake Michigan. So there you have it, five of America's most haunted hotels where you can actually book a room tonight if you're brave enough. The Stanley Hotel in Colorado, where Stephen King's nightmares became our nightmares. The Queen Mary in California, a floating museum of maritime tragedy. The Crescent Hotel in Arkansas, where a charlatan fake cancer clinic left behind genuine ghosts. The Emily Morgan in Texas, where a Gothic hospital building still echoes with suffering of its patients. And the Congress Plaza in Chicago, where over a century of history has created a paranormal perfect storm. What makes these locations so compelling isn't just the ghost stories, it's the documented history behind them. These are places where real tragedies occurred, where real people suffered and died, where the boundaries between past and present seem remarkably thin. Whether you are a true believer in the paranormal or a skeptic looking for a unique travel experience, these hotels offer something special. They're time capsules, preserving not just architectural beauty, but also the stories and energy of everyone who's passed through their doors. If you decide to stay at any of these locations, I'd love to hear your experience. Did you encounter anything unexplained? Did you feel the weight of history pressing down on you? Or did you sleep perfectly undisturbed by spirits? Remember, history never truly dies. It just finds new ways to haunt us. Until Saturday, keep digging into the darkness.